Hi there. We are in the process of having a special guest on. Um, just trying to get her on here. And as we wait for her, I'm also trying to get our other hostess. Okay, hello. How are you?
Hello, hello.
Hi, Shanta.
How you ladies doing tonight?
Doing well. How about you?
I'm good. I'm blessed. Blessed to
Great.
be
Awesome.
here.
It's so good to see you again.
Yes, same here. I'm loving all the content you've been putting out lately too. It's awesome.
Thank you. We're so,
Definitely been. Sorry, Allison.
no, go ahead.
We've been working really hard at it. We really are trying to create a bigger community, and so there's a lot of intention behind that right now.
Oh, I love it. I
And
love
thank
it.
you for noticing. And we love all the content you are creating, and I want to hear more about it. We both do. So that is why we're here tonight.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
I'm gonna
It's
just,
a
I'm gonna
it's
just,
not an easy thing. It's creating content. So
I know.
It
I'm just
really
gonna
is.
introduce, if I'm just gonna do a little bit of an introduction of
Great.
Shanta, just for the people who um, don't know who Shanta is. And Shanta,
Yes,
we
please do.
are, first of all, the Shanta was at our first event, was a panelist at our first event, which was amazing. And we're super thrilled that you will be back again in January of 2026 for, as we're calling it on the download 2.0, not your mother's menopause 2.0. But Chanta Blue is a sex therapist, coach, and pleasure activist who helps women break free from shame and silence to reclaim their confidence, intimacy, and joy, both in and out of the bedroom.
yes.
She creates spaces where healing feels empowering, playful, and deeply transformative. And her work blends clinical expertise with real world tools, guiding women to live and love unapologetically, which I love.
Absolutely. It is what we need right now, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. In this crazy, crazy world that we're living in, there's so many ups and downs. And if we don't have the tools to find pleasure, it can completely overwhelm us and take us under with it. So, my goal is really just to support, particularly women, learn how to use those tools for their own benefit.
Which is great. And I know that that is an area which so many people, I think, find hard to talk about. I mean, look, it's hard enough to talk about the stage we're at in our life. And, really anytime you're talking about personal matters, especially women, it's hard to be very open about it. And then, going through perimenopause and menopause is another level of having to break those stigmas and have those
Mm.
conversations. And on top of that, there are a lot of things that go with that stage of life. And one of them is intimacy and sexual health and well being and what happens during this phase. And it can be really hard to talk about. And so I am really curious as to, like, with your therapy, what brought you to become an expert and want to focus in on sex therapy and the health and wellness around that?
Mm. So, sex therapy in particular, kind of I fell into it. I was that friend in high school and college that people went to talk about their relationship issues just naturally. And then in college, I was introduced to Sue Johansson, who had like this sex talk live show late
Mm,
night, and I was completely infatuated with the show, but I never knew that this was a career that I can actually go into. There wasn't a lot of representation. Like, there weren't a lot of sex therapists, period. And then on top of that, there weren't a lot of sex therapists who were Black and from the
Yeah.
hood and all that. So I didn't know
Hmm.
this was a thing. I listened to my parents find a good job, get a respectable, respectable job with benefits, and stay there until you can retire, right?
Right.
And so, through actually working at a high school, I was a school social worker at a high school, and they had asked me to be a facilitator for a sex ed program for their high school seniors. And so, I was like, sure, why not? And then after getting the training for it, I realized, oh my God, I can do therapy and talk about sex all day. Like, I need to figure out how I can do this. And so a mentor at the time, she was like, yeah, there's a whole master's and doctoral level program that you can go into, and it's really great. And so I went back to school, got another master's degree in human sexuality
Wow.
education, and was like, yes, this is for me. And then in that process, like while I was getting that second master's degree, part of the work is doing the inner work of yourself, like the messages that you were
Right.
receiving about sex and sexuality. And I realized there were a lot of Black women who were in the same boat as me, not having these conversations, dealing with a lot of messages of shame, particularly like
Yes.
religious rooted. And so I wanted to be kind of that representation for my community and start to share this message like, hey, you don't have to, believe these things that have been ingrained in you your entire life. And so from there, I just really love supporting women. I've always been like a girl's girl. So like I make friends with girls
Awesome.
really easily. So I was like, let me focus on my women because we absolutely need it the most because we're the ones who
Yes.
are getting controlled in a sense around our sexuality and being taught that our
Yeah.
sexuality is bad. So,
Right. Oh, that's all very true. And you bring up a really good point about um, the way we were brought up. And, I would imagine, as we were just talking about how difficult it is to have those discussions anyway, but then understanding like how we're having these discussions with people who have been taught their whole lives or through their culture or their the way they were raised, what you do and don't talk about in your life, and then on top of that, shame attached to sex in particular. And so I really am curious if you do see or have experienced more challenges with women of color or different ethnicities who are not only trying to overcome some of the things they need to work on, but then that extra layer of having that discussion.
absolutely, absolutely. So while my niche is Black women, I work with all women. So I see women from all different types of backgrounds. And what I have noticed is I feel like this extra layer that comes with my women of color, because of the cultural messages, because of the systemic racism, there's extra layers in there that they have
Mm,
to unpack and get rid of that my non-Black folks they don't have to deal with because they are
mm-hmm.
given that freedom in a sense to just be able to explore certain things while they still have a lot of the same religious messages
Yeah.
and family messages, things like that. There's different systems in place that kind of don't impact them in the same way. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes I work a little bit harder with my Black women to kind of unpack a lot of those things. And I mean, it's a beautiful sight when we can uncover it all, no matter what the race and background is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really a just beautiful sight when Black women in particular get that liberation that they so deserve.
It's like what a gift to get to that point.
Yeah. For anybody. And then,
Anybody, but on top of that, that
yeah,
extra
to
layer
have,
that,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's
Because we've
great.
been told, no, you're not supposed to. You
yeah.
shouldn't, right? You have to be the best of the best of the best. You can't get caught up in a lot of this kind of free flowing behavior, so to speak. My
Yeah.
mother laughs at me because she calls me a hippie sometimes. It's like, where did you come from? And like, I'm not, traditional in my family. Like, we are a lot more traditional and religious oriented, and I'm far from that.
Far
I'm one
from
of the
that.
heirs. Yeah. And so it can be freeing.
And when you
Yeah,
layer that, like those issues that are unique to a certain group, like to the Black women. And then you layer on what we see happening in communities of color in the medical industry when we talk about menopause and perimenopause, and we talk
Right.
about and what we've learned through the work that April and I have done with this group and, meeting all the people that we've been meeting and all the research that we've been doing and really seeing that not only is the like physical experience of what happens to Black women during this period, but also how they are met by the establishment and how that must layer on this additional whatever,
Hmm.
so there's all these layers of I'm feeling like my body is betraying me and I still have to be sexy and I don't know how, and I just imagine it must be so much more complex when you have that additional layer on there.
Mhm. And research has found that women of color, particularly Black women, their pain isn't received in the same way in the
mm-hmm.
medical industry, right? They're
Yeah.
complaining of certain symptoms that are happening, and it's like, oh, you'll be fine, or
Right.
like, are you sure that you're really experiencing that at that intensity? I think you can handle it a little bit
Mm,
more
Yeah.
when our white counterparts aren't receiving that for some
Yeah.
reason. And so having to deal with that not being believed, and then kind of going
yeah.
home and like, oh, maybe I'll be fine. Like, I'll just bear with it and deal with it. And then it leads to even further complications, regardless of, you know, what is happening in that moment. And so, yeah, there's again, those layers that we have to deal with, those systems that we have to kind of combat on top of just the commonality of the symptoms that we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing.
It's like an extra layer of gaslighting that's happening that is
Right.
it's already
Yeah.
hard navigating, but yeah, that is
Right.
there
Mhm.
there's plenty of research there that shows that, and it's just with everything else, another question is like how do we overcome that? But it's got to start with people like us who want to have these discussions, and then people like you who are taking that extra step to really recognize an area that we truly all should feel we deserve and to feel confident in, and in an industry where, or excuse me, in a society where it's thin, it's pretty, it's young, it's certain stereotypes, and then
Mhm.
we come
Mhm.
into midlife and we're like, I do not have any of those things. That is absolutely not me. I
And
do
some of
not
us,
have
we never had
thin.
those things.
I mean, it's just like you're fighting something that you just are never going to win, first of all. And
Mhm.
then,
Mhm.
as we also get older, we also get more comfortable. I would say, from personal experience, comfortable in my sexuality, and not everybody feels that way, but you get to a certain point where you feel that way, and then you're just like chopped in half because you absolutely are nowhere feeling sexy or anything. Your body is completely different, and it's
Yeah.
Mhm.
as
Really
Allison said
hard.
earlier, betraying you in every single possible way.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I love the term you use, pleasure activist.
Mhm. Mhm.
What a great term. It's
Mhm.
empowering, it's encouraging, it's really coming at it from an angle of like, you are 100% into the advocacy of intimacy, really is what
Mhm.
it comes down to.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
And
love that.
it's for, again, my niche is Black women, and it's for everyone. I want to empower everyone to take control of their
Mm-hmm.
sexuality, to fight for their reproductive and sexual rights in
Yeah.
this country,
Yeah.
which is much needed.
Oh, yes,
And if
yes.
we, even if our rights aren't threatened, somebody else's rights is being threatened. So
Mm,
how can we support them? How can we empower them through this journey and be
Mm-hmm.
those allies and those advocates in those moments? Based off of education I have, right? I have privilege to be able to go and sit with my legislators, talk to people who can actually move the needle and do some policy work and changes in supporting all these different systems to kind of dismantle those systems so we can support the marginalized folks that it's impacting. So
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like I didn't come up with the term. Like I
It's a
actually got it
great
from a book.
term.
It's actually a book called Pleasure Activism. It's a
Okay. Okay.
great book. I forget the author right now. It's escaping me, but it's a really great book for folks who are, really wanting to explore that pleasure activist environment.
interesting. Yeah. How can you talk a little bit about how things change during menopause, or how you find that desire and intimacy, and all these kinds of things evolve? I'm going to say evolve, but really.
Drop off a
So
cliff, aka evolve.
right. So number one, and I love that. I was going through the recording from last year's Not Your Mother's Menopause event, and I came across that clip where I was like, things are not going to be the same from your 20s to like your 30s, 40s up, right? It's just a natural progression of life. Our bodies transition at each stage, which is absolutely part of human nature, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some differences just based off of age. And then again, once you enter menopause, perimenopause, postmenopause, and then again, when you enter, stress and changes in work environment, changes in family dynamic, things like that. And so your body is ever evolving and trying to adapt to the environment that's around you. And again, completely natural for it to happen. That doesn't necessarily mean we need to suffer through all these things. And
Mm-hmm.
so the folks that I work with, they have complained of course, the hot flashes. We get the vaginal dryness. Sometimes we get some pain and discomfort during sexual intercourse. Some people cannot have any type of penetrative intercourse. It's like just a blockage, so to
Mm.
speak. And some research has found that there's over 100 different symptoms related to
Yeah.
perimenopause, menopause,
Yes.
postmenopause, right?
Oh,
Yes.
And
yes.
that's the bulk of our lives. Like that's the last, not even the last half of our life. That's the majority of our life, essentially, that we
Mm-hmm.
may be
Yeah.
navigating some of these symptoms. And so I always tell folks, like, just acknowledge it, recognize it, and don't suffer through it, right? There
Don't
is
suffer.
support
Yes.
and help in any way, whether you're talking to a therapist, whether you're talking to a medical provider. I love it now. There's menopause coaches out here that can
Mm-hmm.
support you and guide you through. So there's so many
Yeah.
different practitioners that can help guide you through some of these transitions. And a big part that folks, are struggling with is just general libido issues.
Yeah.
Like they're
Yes.
not always in the mood. And then I have some clients who they're always in the mood, right? So based off of different hormone levels, it shifts and changes
Right.
for them. And so I always encourage folks, be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, right? There's certain things in your body that's happening that you cannot control, like just from happening, but you can get support in managing and navigating them in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And some of that comes from the work to be done with mental health and wellness, and how that translates into sexual health and wellness.
Mhm.
So admittedly, I don't know what goes into the work of the sex therapy, because I've been in therapy. I know that the talk therapy, but you know, I can't I guess if you could explain, maybe not in great detail, because I know it's different for every individual, but like,
Yeah.
are there certain steps that you typically take when you're taking a person through this journey from the
Mhm.
mental of it to the sexual health and wellness of it?
So, I want to combat this myth big time because a lot of people hear sex therapy and they think, oh, I'm putting my clients in different positions and telling them, all the fun tips and tricks to, do oral or to do all these different things. And no, that's not what sex therapy is. Sex therapy is traditional mental health talk therapy, just we are focusing on some of the dysfunctions that are happening in our sexual
Mm,
lives, right? And so a lot of it is more of the changing of our behaviors and our thoughts and how our attitudes about certain things. So we do CBT, we do DBT, we use all the traditional mental health therapies and approaches, where our focus is just on sexuality. So,
mm,
one of the first things that I do when someone comes in and talks to me, like, hey, I'm having difficulties with my sex life, I talk about, okay, what's your stress level? What are some of the messages that you are telling yourself about your sex life and sexual health? What have you been told growing up about sexuality and your
yeah.
body and the way it feels? A lot of it connects to your self-esteem and your body image, right? And so again, that's something else that's often a lot more mental. I'm also big on doing kind of that biopsychosocial approach, right? I want to make sure you got your blood work done. Have you had
Mm, mm-hmm.
evaluations with your urologist or like whoever you need on your team? I connect with pelvic floor therapists all the time, and
Yes.
coaches, personal trainers, all of that, because it's a more of a holistic view. So yes, we do sometimes talk about certain positions that may make sex feel a little bit better, but I'm not like shifting you. I'm not watching you have sex.
You're
It's
not like a
not
coach.
physical at all. There's a separate set of people who loved it. Like I have some great colleagues who do a great Goody Howard does rideology. So she teaches you how to ride, essentially.
Wow.
Right?
Psychology. I love
Great
that.
people, not clinical, not sex therapy, clinical work. That's not sex therapy.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's what most people think about when they hear sex therapist is like, oh, we're going to do something physical together. And
Mm-hmm.
no, it's very mental, it's very thought and behavior oriented.
That
I
makes a
think,
lot of sense because if
yeah.
you think about it, so much of what our physical reactions are driven by what we're thinking and saying to ourselves and how we're feeling, and certainly makes a lot of sense and a part of your everyday experience where it is already a very vulnerable place
Yeah.
to be, and then on top of that, if your head is going and you've got a lot of different messages coming in, it makes a lot of sense that you're
Mhm.
starting there with that.
And then you're thinking about how your partner pissed you off one day or your kids didn't
Oh
do
yeah,
something. Like
yes.
that all impacts your sexual libido, your desire to have sex. Like it encompasses every aspect of your life. And if we aren't mindful of some of those additional stressors, additional things that are on our to-do list, yes, our desire for sex is going to be out the window.
Yeah, like turning it off is not seeming an option a lot. There's a lot happening in the head, no matter what's happening elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
I
feel like
can.
there's this like sort of cruel joke about one of the cruel jokes about aging, especially, well, I can only speak to it as a woman because I'm a woman, but we, especially if you are, if you've been in therapy and working on your self-awareness and all these kinds of things in general throughout, let's say starting in your 20s, like me, working on self-esteem and vulnerability or whatever it is that you're working on, and then so and therapy is not a magic pill. It takes work and time, and most of the time you don't even know it's working until one day you are like, oh, I dealt with that really well. And you're like, I'm going to
Breakthrough.
write my
I
therapist a note
love
and thank
it.
her. But, but then, so you get, you work, let's say you're in therapy for 10 years, right? And then you're 40 years old. And then you have your little kids and everything changes. And then your body starts to change. And you're like, I have to do this again. I have to relearn how to be vulnerable in the new
Hmm.
me, with the new
Hmm.
feelings, with I have a role, I have a bigger belly, and and I don't like the way that looks when I'm, on all fours or something like that, and things are hanging like they didn't hang before. And you
Hmm.
just,
Hmm.
it just
It's an
doesn't, it's
adjustment.
hard, right?
It
It's
is
like,
hard. It is
it's
hard.
this
Hmm.
moment of time is, so, one of the things I know from sort of talk therapy, I'm just going to say from the therapeutic process, is really how important it is to have conversations,
Hmm.
and what I'm curious about is tips that you may have for like how to have the conversations with your partner, like the difficult conversations, whether it's a new partner or a long-term partner, because sometimes those
That's
conversations
great.
are really tough.
Yeah.
What you want, how you're feeling, what's changing, what's used to be great and wasn't great, like
Hmm.
those are hard things to
Yeah.
talk about.
And like I said, communication is going to be key throughout all aspects of these transitions that are happening, whether it be conversations to your doctors, conversations with family, friends, your lovers, your partners, whoever. Talking about it more is always a plus. And the more you talk about it, the more you can develop the language to recognize what it is that you need and what it is that
Mm.
you
Mm,
want to happen. Because what I
Hmm.
find is that a lot of the folks that I work with don't have the language first. And so we begin to
yeah.
explore different tools. I give a lot of homework and I love reading. So I encourage people to read books. I try to print out excerpts from books and things like that to give them. So that first part is looking for the articles, looking for the books, looking for, the think pieces. We have social media. We, come across reels and, videos on this all the time. And so once we start to develop the language for ourselves, we can share with our partners like, hey, I came across this. What do you think about this? Or, did you know that this was going on, that this is a common occurrence? And so I call them teachable moments, right? So finding those
Hmm.
elements where you can share different information with your loved ones, with your, practitioners, your doctors, whomever, to say, this is what I'm experiencing, or this is what I'm desiring in a certain way. And then hopefully the conversation can go from there. Also being mindful of the timing of it all. Like we don't want to
Right.
start
Right.
these really vulnerable conversations when we know we have to leave the house in 10 minutes or we know the
Yeah.
kids are coming home in a little bit or really carving out the time and creating a safe and vulnerable space before we start having those hopefully safe and vulnerable conversations with the loved ones around us.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
great advice. Really great advice.
Yeah.
Because that is a big piece of it. It's a vulnerability, but then it's also, like you said, having the language for it. And I have to say, as challenging as social media can be, it also is a gift in some
Mhm.
of the education and small sound bites that you can get that really help maybe facilitate the conversation. I trade different reels back and forth with my partner all the time, but certainly a great suggestion if you find something you're like, I did not know how to talk about this. So, oh, this is exactly what I want to say.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Great
Mm-hmm,
suggestion.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, like, once you're able to, okay, you have the language, you've shared the information, now we can problem solve. Now we can see
Right.
about negotiations and figure out, okay, how do we need to now incorporate this new information into our daily lives? And again, it's not going to be an overnight thing. Like you're going to have this one conversation and things are going to be perfect. It's a continuous process and it gets easier the more you do it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's true. That's
Mhm.
very true. You have I in doing our pre-game research, asking you questions, you have put together a um what you call the sensual evening ritual guide,
Yes,
sensual
yes,
evening
yes,
mini
yes.
ritual guide. And I'm
Hmm.
wondering if we can, when we post this back later, we'll link that. But I wonder if you can give everybody a little overview of what that is.
Absolutely. So absolutely. I'm trying not to use two words at the same time. Be redundant. Okay. So I am big on tapping into your five senses in order to reconnect with your body and really embrace just how your body functions, right? We are given this body because we like the shape and the size and the lumps and the bumps helps us get through certain things within our lives. So if we can learn to appreciate it and learn it and acknowledge it, so to speak, then it helps us with reconnecting to our sexuality overall. And so the Central Evening Guide gives you a few activities that you can incorporate in your daily lives. So it says evening, but you can do it in the morning. You can do it whenever in the middle of the day, whenever you have the time to do it. But it's just opportunities, it's activities to help you sit and reflect and tap into those five senses, whether it be tasting something really sweet, or if you like something salty, or if it's giving yourself a self massage in the evening with your favorite body oils and things like that. And so that's a small piece of it. Usually, when I do my one-on-one coaching with my clients, I give them a full guide where like
Mm.
it's about 20 to 30 different activities that helps them kind of just reconnect. And it's important in making sure that we continue to keep our sexuality, our sensuality alive. Because, like I said, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The more you
Hmm.
talk about your sexuality and your sensuality, the easier it gets for you to start to advocate for yourself and look for it a little bit more. Because when it's top of mind, you'll be able to recognize
Yeah,
opportunities for you to add that pleasure into your life a little bit more consistently.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
a lot of sense.
one of the things that you said when we were talking about that is recognizing the nature of your own specific body. And it's interesting because that's something that I come across as in my work as a personal trainer all the time. And we have these notions, and I assume well, I know men suffer, or not suffer, men experience their own issues with their
Mhm.
physical body, but, um, you know, and especially during this period of life, the changes in the body, and really trying to, and I work with a lot of my clients and myself to try and reframe the language and the thoughts that we're using to talk about our own bodies. Because by
Mhm.
the time we get to this point in our life, our bodies have brought us so much experience, and
Mhm.
they
Hmm.
wear this, we wear this experience of having had a child, or your tattoos, or a scar, or your muscles, or your stretch marks, or whatever it is,
Mhm. Mhm.
that these are all, these these are all like,
You mean
or
wisdom?
this.
Is it called
Right.
wisdom? It's called
Wisdom. I
wisdom.
love that.
Yeah, like
All the
it's like,
wisdom. So
it's
much.
all, it is, it's like these gray hairs or whatever are like, I'm lucky to be 55 years old, and like, and my body wears these things to show. It's like the rings of a tree,
Hmm.
it's, and it's a really hard thing especially as your body's changing sort of out of your control,
Hmm.
as you get older, it's a very hard thing to wrap your head around. And it is
Yeah.
something, when you said that, it really struck me as something that find myself spending a lot of time in my work talking about
Hmm.
with the women that I work with.
Hmm. Right. Trying
Yeah.
to, you know, love on your body for what it's done for you to this point, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Because there are a lot of people who are a lot younger than us that did not make it to
Yes.
today, right?
Mm-hmm.
I lost one of my cousins this year, and he
I'm
was
sorry.
Oh, I'm so
much
sorry.
younger than I was, right?
That's tough.
So I reflect on that because I didn't have to be here today, and so I give thanks to my body for bringing me this extra day, right? I give
Yeah.
thanks to it allowing me to do the things that I want to do, whether I want to, twerk and drop it like it's hot, or I want to go and be able to go swimming one day or go hiking another day. Like it allows me to have fun and enjoy my life. And so
Yeah.
as long as my body is continuing to do that, it doesn't necessarily matter what shape it's in, as long as I'm feeling healthy within to do the things that I love.
Yeah.
There are
It's true.
two words that stick out to me with
Uh-oh.
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 Okay.
I don't know what you that
There we go.
there she is. What were the two words you left us hanging?
I'm sorry. All of a sudden it paused on me. I have no idea what happened. So weird. The two things that I'm thinking of are acceptance and gratitude.
Hmm.
And I think in general, women have a hard time with the acceptance and the gratitude. We are
Hmm.
so constantly looking at others and trying to accomplish all of the things and people please and overcome a lot of other challenges. And it's hard and not something we typically take time to do, which is sit back and reflect. Acceptance is probably the hardest
Hmm.
because of that change in the shift, and certainly mentally and physically that all changes as we get older, not even perimenopause or menopause, just as we age. um, but then the gratitude piece of it, like taking a step back and saying, wow, my body was able to do that. Wow,
Hmm.
I was able to accomplish that. Or in what you were just saying, I lived another day. I was able to do this. I am where I am now. I'm thankful to be here another day. And boy, what a great power that is to be able to take that approach and that perspective when it's so easy to get bogged down in the stress of everything you're going through and frustrated with yourself because the number on the scale isn't what you want it to be, or things don't function the way they used to, or whatever it is, and rather than focusing on the negative, which is a lot easier to do, is focusing on the things that have really served you well.
Hmm. And it's work. I'm not saying this
It's
is
It,
work.
easy at all.
sure,
This
sure.
is a daily practice, right? Like there are some times where I'm like, oh, fuck this. Like I'm over it. I'm completely over it. And then there's other
Yes.
days that I'm full of gratitude and that I'm loving the skin I'm in. And so it's going to ebb and flow. It's just the way life is, unfortunately, but fortunately.
Yeah.
So we again giving ourselves that grace for those days,
Mm-hmm.
those time periods where maybe we can't get into the acceptance and the gratitude. And sometimes maybe we can, show gratitude just because our hair came out nice today,
Yeah.
right? Like that's the only
I
thing
am
we got
always
going for
thankful for
us.
that. Absolutely thankful
A
for
good
that.
hair day is a good
Today
day.
is not one of those,
Like
but
maybe not
always,
the full
always thankful for
thing, but a
it.
little piece of it I can show gratitude. And that's
Yeah.
that's good by itself.
I mean, so on that topic, just in more of the mental health space, I hear a lot about like finding three tiny things you're grateful for every single day. Is that something that you subscribe to or have your clients do? Because it's something that I have practiced on and off. And I do find, and maybe it's a placebo effect or I'm just talking myself into it, or it's actually happening. I do find I actually feel better
Hmm.
when it could be something as small as, I am so thankful I did not have to make dinner tonight. Or I am so thankful that I'm able to sit down on the couch for an hour, whatever. that is something that you
Mhm.
recommend to your clients.
Absolutely, absolutely. I give the homework of having them write down their wins for the day, sometimes for the week, for the month, depending on, what the time frame is that I'll see them next. But write down if you made the bed, that's a win for the day. Like that's an
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Yeah.
If you didn't curse out your boss for the day, that's an accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So write it down, and before you know it, you'll have this visual representation of, "Ooh, I did the things. I
Mm.
adulted today. I was
Oh,
able
and that is,
to
oh
move
man,
past things."
adulting. That is a hard one sometimes. But
Hmm.
if you think that, and you say the physical writing down of it, so you can actually
Yes.
see a physical
So
representation.
ideally in
That's
your own
interesting.
handwriting, there's
Okay.
like scientific research. I can't remember the exact quote of it, but there's scientific research that shows that writing things down help you kind of receive it a little bit better and believe it a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But if you cannot do that, at least like try to put it in the notes in your phone, something so you can see, like really see, oh wow, this is a long list, right? Because sometimes when we
Mm-hmm.
just think about it in our head, it kind of, floats
Yeah.
away a little bit. But if we can actually write it down in some sense, it helps to have a more lasting impact. Whether it's a placebo effect or like really shifting and reframing your thoughts and behaviors, it doesn't matter as long as it works, right? That's the key. It has
Absolutely
to work.
100% true. Yes.
And that
Co-sign
must
on that.
and I imagine that that must trickle down into a more like more accessible sexual openness, like being like when you have that gratitude and the sort of being able to reflect on the positive things that are going on, not, but at the same time, not ignoring the things that are not positive. And like you said before, giving yourself grace for the day that you can't come up with three things that you're grateful for because it's just a
Mhm,
crappy day,
mhm, mhm.
and, but then seeing all that in one place, I can imagine then you have like a more, you're more centered, you're more grounded, you're more grateful, all these kinds of things,
Mhm.
which then would then lead to being able to be more open and more vulnerable with whoever you need to be more open and more vulnerable
Right,
with.
right, right. And it can be absolutely anything. It doesn't just have to be the PG-13 things that you get
Right.
done, right? Like if you slapped your partner on the butt and it made them feel good,
Yep.
awesome. It made
Yep.
you feel good, awesome, right?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
it can be all the things.
Great
Yeah.
suggestion. Um,
Mhm.
before we go, so I've been checking to see if we have any questions, and I think Allison and I have definitely thrown a lot your way. Do you have any like one takeaway or a couple of takeaways when it comes to the mental health, but the sexual health and wellness of it all?
Hmm. Hmm. Definitely, I would say on the mental health side of it is really think about the stress, particularly the chronic stress
Yes.
that is in your life.
Yeah.
That can be a game changer if we can reduce that, because it will absolutely increase the sexual health piece of that, which is your libido and your desire.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if we're bogged down with a lot of heavy, stressful items in our day to day life, there's no way that sex is going to be on the top of that to-do list. So when we
Mm-hmm.
can reduce that, it can bleed into our sexual health and sexual lives. And I love this saying all the time is you don't have to do it alone, right? You can get support. You can reach out to professionals who have experience in whatever it is that you're dealing with. Even if you don't want to see a mental health practitioner, there's holistic practitioners, coaches, like a whole bunch of different folks who have the expertise, have the knowledge to be able to support you in what you're navigating and kind of trying to deal with, so to speak. So
Oh,
those
that's
are,
great.
yeah.
That's great. Especially the part about not feeling like it has to be specifically talk therapy, because I think a lot of people are afraid of that for
Hmm.
Yeah.
whatever reason or stigmatized. But
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's
I
about
like
finding the
that.
community with it too, right? So
Right,
even if it's
right.
not like a one-on-one thing, there are support groups. There
There's
are like,
rightology.
right. There's
There's
classes.
rhinology. That's right.
There's some amazing classes. There's still Facebook groups that, are very active for certain things. So like
Yeah,
really kind of finding that community, finding the folks who have been going through this as well. So you're not doing this alone.
excellent.
Great advice. Great way to end. Shanta, thank you so much. Blue
Thank you.
Wellness, I mean, Montclair, right?
Yes, we are in
We are
Montclair.
so thankful to have you. So thankful for your expertise and your openness and your education. A lot of fun to discuss. So thank you so much for joining us
You're
tonight.
welcome. You're welcome. I can't wait to see you all in January.
We can't wait to have you.
Same, same, same. Thank you, Shanta. So good to
Thank
see you.
Have a
you.
great
Thank,
night.
You
thank you.
too. Bye
Bye.
bye.